Hello all, and welcome back to my channel, Red Femme Diaries. Hi all. So here we are, we're on our second day of a series that I've started called History Talks. And basically what these talks are, it's just me giving men an opportunity to speak and tell their stories. I'm a 90s child. And so I remember there's always been platforms for women. And, for decades now, women have been telling their stories, but you don't really hear about, the man side. And so we have another special guest here, another very dear, close friend of mine. He's here to basically tell his story. Now, if you notice, the camera is shut off this time. And from here on out in this series, the men's cameras more than likely will be shut off because a lot of these men are going through these situations now. And so we want to make sure that we protect these men and their families as they come on here and give up their time and are vulnerable to tell you all about their lives. Because essentially what we're trying to do here with History Talks is we just want to start a dialogue where men now are finally starting to get their say. I personally believe that there is a war on masculinity. There's a war on manhood. For so long, the women have had the mic and it's all been about them and what they have to say. But it's time that we start, talking to these men. So without further ado, we're going to bring on our guest. Hi, are you there?
I am here.
Hi there. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Well, first, before we even begin, I just want to say thank you so much for doing this. And in case you guys didn't know, and he does not want me to say this, but because of Justin here is the reason why I started these talks. We've known each other for some time, and he has been wanting to jump on the platform, to talk to the young men about what he's going through. My channel now is finally starting to grow a little bit. So here we are. So thank you so much for coming here and being vulnerable, taking time out of your day to do this. I cannot thank you enough. So first off, why did you want to do this? Why did you want to come up here this way?
Generally, I just wanted to have a voice for men like me who are going through things, because for so long, men have been silenced when it comes to abusive relationships.
Yes.
And again, I just wanted to be a voice for those people and maybe motivate someone to actually be able to develop a voice for themselves.
Awesome. So if you could, so that the audience can sort of get to know you, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Justin. I live in Des Moines, Iowa. I work in the medical field as a practitioner. I've been doing it for about 14 years. I am married. We've been married for 12 years. We have 6 children. My wife is a stay-at-home parent or homemaker, whichever you prefer. I am what you would call, I guess, the breadwinner. So I'm the only one working. One of my children is through marriage, my oldest. So that's about it in a nutshell, the smaller aspects of my life.
You said, if you can repeat, you said your oldest is through marriage. If you can.
Yes. So me and my wife grew up together in the same neighborhood. We went to the same schools. We started dating around high school, and, for reasons I don't even remember, we broke up right before graduations. And we met again years later. I was in college, halfway through college, and she was working as a receptionist for an investment company. When we met again, she had a child. I have not seen her since years before. So she had another relationship. She had a 3-year-old. But that didn't really bother me much, because in my head, I was just happy to have my quote unquote, my love back. And on an immature aspect, I expected things to be the same as they were when me and her were dating prior to. But that was not the case.
Gotcha. If you could, just a little bit, can you tell us a little bit about how life was like when you were coming up, when you were growing up?
Sure, yeah. So I've got 2 other brothers and I have 1 sister. Mom and dad were both in the household. Dad worked the majority of the time. Mom picked up odd jobs here and there where we needed to make big purchases, like vacations and some Christmases and some other things. Mom was a homemaker. Mom kept us together. She made sure the kitchen was clean all the time. She made sure the house was immaculate. Make sure that we knew what we were eating for dinner for that entire week. We rarely ate out. Communication between mom and dad was good. There were some arguments, but the arguments were pretty much inaudible. They never did it in front of us. Sometimes you can hear like the baritone in my father's voice raising, but it never got to the point where it was like what you would call verbally abusive or profanity being used. It's just frustration, natural frustration.
Gotcha.
But it never carried on. And my mom always remained a woman. She always remained feminine. That was one of the biggest aspects because she can control her husband. She set that tone and he understood it. So she was able to submit to him.
Gotcha.
And that was a big thing for me.
Gotcha.
That you can literally see.
So when you reconnected with Laura, were some of these things from your childhood things that you expected or anticipated when you reconnected with her?
Yes, absolutely. Because when children grow up, if you have both parents inside the household, well, not even necessarily that. I mean, regardless who's in your household, if you're a boy, you're going to look at your father, right, if he's in the household and see how he does things. And you're going to have those expectations of yourself. Okay. And even as that boy, you're going to look at your mom also and see what mom does. And naturally, you're going to expect some of those things, if not all of those things, as your wife, if she's doing things the right way. Right. So it comes down to if you're a female, if you're a girl, you're going to look at things and your mother does. And you're going to start mimicking those things. And unfortunately, the society we live in today, most, I'll say in Black households, younger people, 45 on down, it's usually no father in the house. Gotcha. Or he's very limited in it. So that girl does not have much. She does not have much to have her set the tone. She does not have discipline. Her father's not there. And generally speaking, the mother will act a certain way when there's no father inside the household.
Gotcha.
So there's no leading.
Now, when you reconnected with Laura and before you guys got married, did you all communicate about how you wanted your household ran in this way?
We did not. We did not. And again, my thinking was a lot different then when I was younger than it is now.
Right. Yeah, I guess it sounds like it was kind of something that was assumed by both.
It was,
yeah.
It wasn't necessarily assumed. It was more so of, I think that she's going to get it at some point.
Now, if you can tell us a little bit, if you're able, a little bit about Laura and her background, her family background.
Laura's family background wasn't really that peaches and cream, I'll say. Father was not really there. Mother was there. She worked. But while she's at work, pretty much her and her siblings took care of themselves. A lot of things happened inside that household, and some things that I'm not comfortable repeating.
Oh, no worries.
But it was in an awful area, right? So yeah, they pretty much took care of themselves.
Gotcha.
Dad wasn't home, and mom did what she had to do.
Now, can you now just tell us what a typical day looks like in your household?
Sure. Yeah. Typical day for me is I work Monday through Friday. I'll get up at 6:30 or 6:45. I'll make myself some coffee while everyone's asleep. I'll develop a list of chores for the kids to do. I'll clean up the kitchen. If I did not clean up that night before, most of the time I do. I'll sweep. I'll wash a load of clothes. I'll vacuum the living room. And I'll start prepping for work, and I'll leave out.
Now, approximately how many hours a week are you working?
In my job, I would say there's no set schedule for me, but I would say somewhere between 45 and 55 hours.
Gotcha. And I just wanted to make sure that we all did hear you correct in saying that your wife is a stay-at-home mom.
Yes.
Okay, so she only works inside the home. Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt you. So please continue on.
Yeah. Just piggybacking off that, she's a stay-at-home mom, and she has been for a while. At the beginning of our relationship, she did work for about, I'll say about another 3 years. Okay. And she stopped because that's when I graduated college and I was able to take on the load of the household. Of course, there was less children back then too.
Gotcha.
So she has not worked since.
To state this, to stay on the topic of that typical day, what does communication, what does that sound like? What does that look like in your house?
Communication is very, very irregular inside the household. There is a lot of tension inside this household that I live. A lot of tension. And I'm no saint by any means. And in some aspects, I will call myself an enabler, because these expectations that I had from my mom and dad when we were younger, in my head, I'm thinking things are supposed to flow like that. And when they don't flow like that, naturally it gets frustrating. It gets very, very frustrating. But on the other side, my wife is very, very sensitive to criticism.
Gotcha.
She will not allow anyone to criticize her about anything, even if it's like very, very subtle criticizing. Like, hey, you left the refrigerator open. That would actually turn into, yeah, but you always do this and blah, 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 when it could just be, okay, oops, sorry. She cannot be criticized.
Gotcha.
So this has been a very, very, this has been a strict learning process for me. When there are arguments, it turns into a lot of name calling and a lot of verbal abuse, profanity being used. So, like I said, I'm no saint. Right. And the years before, I have engaged in that as well, but it was never me initiating anything. It's always firing back because I'm feeling attacked until I learn that this is not going anywhere.
So Justin, I want you to feel completely free and transparent here to speak your mind. So just so that we can know, like, what does this sound like?
Yeah. So I mean, if I can give an example.
Absolutely. Like, feel free.
Yeah. If I can give an example, it is there's a lot of gaslighting being used in these arguments.
Gotcha.
So there was one time when my kid said something when I was in the back room, and I guess my wife didn't like it. I came back up there, and there was a lot of words being used that children should not hear.
Could you let us, if you could let us know so that we can, we definitely want to know, like, what was said, you know what I mean?
If I can remember, I'll do my best to remember.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
It was something along the lines of, if you do that again, I will slap the shit out of you. You do this, but you don't know what the fuck you supposed to be doing on a daily basis.
And this is to the children.
This is to one of the children. Yeah, one specific child in that one incident. So what I decided to do, I took the child. I grabbed her by her shoulder and started walking her to the back room. Gotcha. Because there was no production coming out of that conversation. So I kind of stepped in front of that line of fire, because it automatically turned on me being a target. Like, what are you doing? See, this is that controlling shit that I'm talking about, what you're doing. I'm talking to her to try to scold her, and you trying to go above and beyond and blah, blah, blah. I'm just letting her talk. Right. So I took the child to the back room and I came back and I addressed the situation. I shouldn't have. I should have just disappeared. But there was name calling going in the background of, I'm a piece of shit, and some other stuff that I did not remember. I just remember it was in front of the other children.
So, so let me just pause here for a minute. So you're saying that she called you a piece of in front of, so the other children were able to hear her calling you this?
Yeah.
Wow.
Piece of shit, stupid ass, in front of the other children, because the other children were there when she was quote unquote scolding the other child.
Wow.
Yes. So I went back and addressed it because I got really, really frustrated at the moment because she was saying these things in front of my kids.
Wow.
About their father and painting this picture. So I guess it's because if I was to guess, it would be because she felt a certain way of me taking the child away, and it made her seem like a criminal, like she was doing something wrong. So what she was able to do in that conversation was gaslight the shit out of me and make me feel like I did something wrong.
Before we go on, I know some of our my subscribers may not know what gaslighting is. I literally just discovered what it is not too long ago. So if you don't mind, I would like to just read them a quick definition, if that's okay.
Sure.
So just that we all know what we're talking about here. So let's see here. Okay. It says here, so in the vernacular, the phrase to gaslight refers to the act of undermining another person's reality by denying facts, the environment around them, or their feelings. Targets of gaslighting are manipulated into turning against their cognition, their emotions, and who they fundamentally are as people. Does that sound about right?
It does, and I can give a very specific example to help your viewers
please do
understand.
Please do.
There was a situation that happened once where physical abuse happened. I'll call it that. That was an argument. I don't specifically remember what the argument was about because there's so many. And it got to the point where a finger was pointed on the side of my head. And I
kind of like this.
Yes.
Got
and I proceeded to move the hand away. I did not hit. I did not do anything. I didn't hit. I didn't smack, and I didn't push it away. I just moved it out of my face. And then I was hit with like 3 shots.
Where were you hit?
On the side of my head, in the jaw, and the back.
Now,
so then I proceeded to grab her.
Okay.
And
now, was this with the closed fist, or was this a hand?
This was a closed fist.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I proceeded to grab her and immobilize her.
Okay.
Right. So police was called. I called the police. The reason I called the police is because the other 2 options would have gotten me in trouble. What I really wanted to do is I wanted to uppercut her. I wanted to hit her back.
I can imagine.
But I know better. I know better because I can get myself in trouble.
And if you could, before you go and hold that thought, can you give us an idea of what the size difference is between you and Laura?
Yes, sure. She is about, I'll say maybe she's 5'7", maybe 135 pounds.
Okay.
Okay. I am 6'2", 215 pounds.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm not a weak guy by any means.
Oh no, I can only imagine.
I can handle my own.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So back to what I was saying, there was 2 other options. A, I hit her back. Right. And when I get frustrated, as any man, if a man gets frustrated, he has a lot of testosterone in his system. And that testosterone will translate to a lot of power. So if you hit a woman with all my might, I can seriously hurt her, if not kill her.
Absolutely.
Especially because of the size difference. So the other option is I do nothing. I let her hit me. I walk away. And unfortunately, that is how society pictures things are supposed to happen.
Now, let me ask you something. I guess what I'm picturing in my mind, if you're trying to walk away from her, knowing how your wife is, do you think that she would have just allowed you just to walk away? Or do you think that she would still continue to come after you? Because we hear that a lot, walk away, but would she have allowed that? Would she have just let it go then?
No, she would have.
Yeah.
No, she would have let me walk away.
Oh, okay.
But I think there would have been more gaslighting. But let me get back to the gaslighting portion of it first, okay?
Okay, yes.
During that time, she was pregnant. So when I called the police, she got on the phone and called my mother and said that I hit her.
Oh, boy.
When I did not hit her. So if you can just picture what I did was, if someone has their finger in your head, you take your hand, you move it down and move out of the way.
Right.
She said that I hit her. And I think there was kind of like a knee-jerk reaction to me calling the police of, oh, damn, he called the police.
Right.
So to still to this day, she will bring up, and mind you, this was years and years ago. She will still bring this up. You called the police on your pregnant wife. You did this. You were wrong. Something could have happened to me because you couldn't deal with this. That is gaslighting. That is removing the portion of her fault of you put your hands on somebody. And if you put your hands on somebody, there are consequences. No matter how big or how little, there's going to be something. So still, that's gaslighting, because in all honesty, why gaslighting is so powerful is because there are times you can second guess yourself.
Absolutely.
And thinking, did I do the right thing?
I'm glad you said that.
They will have you second guessing yourself. It's a huge manipulation tactic that's used.
And Justin, what's really frustrating to me about women, because I've had my own different issues with women in my life, and this gaslighting is a really huge thing, because you get yourself put into a situation like this where you have to think quickly. A simple argument rises to physicality. You know what I mean? And like you said, what are you to do? And the unfortunate thing about women sometimes, we want to hit, get violent, with a man, knowing good and well that man cannot hit you back. And I personally find that disgusting, because that leaves the man's hands tied. So basically, you're a woman almost, almost half a man's size. We want to fight you, knowing that you can't do anything. And God forbid you actually do lash out, then we want to call the police. And then we know, different things that are going on with the police. Now that puts that man into danger, because typically, for many decades, the police almost automatically believe the woman. And so when a woman puts a man in that position, it really leaves your hands tied. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And with that, I mean, if you remember what I said about what my expectations were inside the house when I was younger, seeing mom and dad,
right,
understand that my kids are seeing these things. They're hearing these things. So I fear for my daughters that grow up and think that this is the way I'm supposed to act.
Now, let me ask you, were the children present or near when this was going on?
No. Okay. They weren't there during that time.
Okay.
No. But most of the reactions are not reactions. Most of the situations that happened, they were around, but none of physical stuff.
Gotcha.
But keep in mind, when you're talking about abuse, mental and emotional abuse can be just as bad, if not worse, than physical.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that sticks. Bruises heal.
Absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Some of the mental or emotional abuse that you have gone through?
Yeah, physical, we just talked about the physical. Mental abuse happens a whole lot. If I can give an example.
Please.
Let's see. There was a time when it was a situation when things got really, really rocky during the summer. And again, I don't know the nature of the conflict of what happened and what made it, because again, there's so many. Yeah, but this one went on for a very, very long time.
Okay.
And I think that, I do remember, I had contacted her mother. Now, her mother, believe it or not, is very, 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 very calm, very understanding woman.
Mm-hmm. So she's changed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I had this conversation with her, and she knows that Laura has issues.
Right.
Laura has issues with responding to things. She's very controlling. She's very manipulative. She's very, what do you call it? She takes no accountability for anything that she does ever. And her mom will tell her that. Mm-hmm. So she found out that I had a conversation with her mom about getting her help with some stuff, because she does not believe she needs help.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
When she found that out, she took it to me. She got to talking about how I need to stay the fuck away from her family.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She called me a bitch several times, a stupid bitch, and threatening divorce. Threatening divorce has been an ongoing situation, by the way, throughout this marriage.
Wow.
Are we going to get a divorce? And I'm going to be, she can't wait until she leaves and she sees my face when she finds someone better. And she's going to find a man to do this because I'm not doing this. All that is abuse.
And
all
you're
of that
saying
is
that
mental.
your homemaker wife with 6 children is saying that she's going to leave you and find another better man.
Hilarious, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's comedy right there.
And
Okay.
she may. I
Right.
mean, statistics don't lie, but it's a
Right.
very, very short straw that you
Right.
got to pull to actually get that.
But the constant threat of that, I mean, I can imagine that's pretty stressful because, you know what I mean? That's the
It
threat
used
of
to be.
essentially taking your family away.
It used to be. It used to be. And I'm no clinician, but I do know a little about psychology from my experience because I do have a therapist that I see like every 2 weeks and we talk about.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. And what she was able to tell me was what it sounds like is that I am dealing with narcissistic abuse. And that's when I started looking up what is a narcissist. And what I found out was all of us have narcissistic traits about us.
Very true.
So you hear this term thrown out a lot, like, oh, you're a narcissist, you're a narcissist. Like, no, it doesn't usually work like that. You can do narcissist things, but when you're dealing with somebody who may have the disorder, narcissistic personality disorder is a huge thing, and it usually stems from childhood trauma, which Laura has. Laura has severe childhood trauma. So what that generally is there's no accountability and there's no empathy for things that you go through.
And can you kind of to keep it specific to Laura, in what ways does she not take accountability, would you say?
Well, I mean, we talked about the criticizing thing of there's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of hypocrisy. If I can give one example.
Yes, please.
I was on my way home from work and she had to be somewhere. She told me she had to be somewhere the day before. And I'm like, hey, go ahead and go. I'll be gone for 30 minutes. Well, she said she'll be gone for 30 minutes. No, I'll be home in 30 minutes. Go ahead and go. The kids are fine. My oldest is 18. She's still here. So she did not leave. And when I came home, I was automatically hit with shots of, you said you were going to be here this time. I told you I had to be somewhere here, but you being controlling again and this. And in my head, I'm like, this is controlling word again. How am I controlling?
Right.
Anyway, that happened. And I kind of walked away and I'm like, okay, whatever. The next day goes around. I go to work and I come home and she's not there. And I talk to the kids. I got home from work around 6:30. Oh, Mama's been gone since 2:30. Like, wow, okay. The other day before you said you don't leave the kids. You're not going to leave them for 30 minutes because this. And the next day you leave them home for 4 hours by themselves with no source of communication.
Wow. So she didn't let you know. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So another example is if you call her on anything, she will push the envelope and do the gaslighting thing again. Let me see. Hey, it's the other. Okay, here you go. The other day. Hey, you left the car light on last night inside the car. I just told her that very subtly. I didn't yell. I don't yell.
Right.
But that turned into, okay, so why didn't you just turn it off? You always leave this open. You always leave the cabinets open. You do this, you do this, you do that, you do this. I automatically became a target because she can't accept responsibility for things that she does, no matter how little.
That's a simple response. That's a simple, oh, I did. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Shut the light off. That's pretty simple. Right. That's how it's supposed to be. Right.
Hitting me before I called the police. The issue isn't her hitting me. The issue to her is me calling the police.
Right. I got you.
Well, and like, it's automatically became a thing throughout this relationship of I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do as a husband.
Right.
Like you're supposed to do this. I don't feel secure. I don't feel protected. I don't do these things. I'm like, okay, you're telling me.
That's another thing that you hear a lot of Black women say, that whole, we're not protected thing. And so this is something that you're hearing in a house that you're paying for, correct?
Yes, she does not
Okay.
understand that she's a 1%er. I call her a 1%er because most women do not have that luxury
Absolutely.
of having the option if you want to go to work or not, or if you can stay at home. And if your
Mm,
husband makes enough money for you to live there.
right.
I've not, through our relationship, through our 14 years of marriage, I've never told her, you need to do this. You need to clean the kitchen. You need to get the food ready. You need to do X, Y, and Z. So maybe that's my fault of not putting my foot down, but she's gotten very, very comfortable.
Because you automatically do it. You know what I mean? So now she
Yeah.
feels, I don't, but see, but here's the thing about that. Some people would look at you and say, well, you're doing it, but I'm going to say this, I don't like when people say that, because at the end of the day, it has to be done. And if you're not working, you don't have a job, why are you not doing it? Just because you will do it because it has to be done doesn't take that responsibility away from the one that is the homemaker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
So in my head, me as a husband, I should be helping with these things. I should be helping keep the house straight. Sure. I should be helping cooking from time to time. Like, hey babe, I got dinner today. I'll go ahead and cook, or I'll do this. Because when things need to get fixed or things get broken around the house, everyone automatically looks at me naturally, and I'm okay with that. It's my job as a man to make sure that things are running the way they're supposed to, right? But
Right.
I should not be cooking 3 or 4 times a week after I get home from work, cleaning
Absolutely.
kitchens every day, making sure the kids are doing these chore things. As a homemaker, you should be able to do these things. I should not have to do this. What I should be there doing is actually reinforcing and not enforcing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So this is taking time out of my day, because the kids don't understand that when dad is tired and he comes from work and he has to do these things, make sure they have their homework done, make sure they have food, make sure the house is clean, because the majority of the time it's just shit laying everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't have any energy to be the dad that I want to be.
Right.
I'm very involved with my kids, but I wanted to do more. I want to interact more, and I don't have time to rest. So there's no rejuvenation time. So work gets stressful each day, more and more stressful today, because there's no rest.
Right.
Because I have this thing inside my head where if I were a homemaker, what would I be doing?
Right.
Oh, my house would be immaculate.
If I can ask, have you ever brought up these specific issues with her?
Yes.
What was her reaction?
There was no, again, there was no accountability for things not getting done. There is always an excuse of, I'm going through this and you do this. Why don't you do it? And just a lot of stuff. Most of the time we have these conversations, it's during an argument.
Gotcha.
But one of those arguments, and I'm going to tie all this in a second, when she told me what I'm supposed to be doing as a husband, how I don't show her much affection or enough affection. Well, based off these conversations, you kind of interpret that the reason why I don't show her much affection is because of this shit that I go through every day. And it's, I told her, you told me all these things that you want me to do, or what I'm supposed to be doing as a husband, as a father. You tell me what you're supposed to be doing. There's never an answer. There was an answer one time, and I struck that answer down because it was an awful answer.
What was the
I'm
answer?
supposed to be taking care of the kids, is what she told me.
Okay.
That's something we both do. What is something unique to you? What I don't want to sound cliche, but what do you bring to this table?
Right.
Except chaos. Bipolar chaos. Because many of these times we have these discussions and these arguments, a day or two later, she'll act like nothing happened.
Right. And now
I don't like conflict. I don't like conflict. I'm too busy and I've got too much going on to care. And one of my main problems is I'm very forgiving. And I'll forget about things like, okay, whatever, got to keep the boat moving. Right. Got to keep the ship sailing.
Let me ask you this. Part of what I believe, she says she takes care of the kids. That's what she does. in my mind, part of taking care of the kids is making sure that the meals are prepared, making sure that there's groceries in the table, making sure that the house is clean, the menus are prepared. All those things are part of taking, care of the children. And if she's not necessarily doing those things, how does Laura spend most of her day?
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
It perception is she's either on the phone,
Okay.
or just relaxing somewhere or going places. I don't know because I'm not there and I don't keep tabs on her and
Okay.
ask where she's going. That's something a controlling person would do, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So
What do your children say? Like, have you ever asked your children, say, hey, what's mommy doing most of the day? Have you ever talked to them about her activities during the day? What
yeah,
do they
they
have to
have. I mean,
say?
it's hit miss. It's hit miss because, like I said, sometimes she'll cook and sometimes she'll clean, and
Mm-hmm.
it'll appear that she's doing what she's supposed to do, but it's never consistent. Very, very inconsistent. So the kids will say, I don't ask this too much. I'm like, hey, what did mommy do all day? They'll say, oh,
Right.
she was gone. She was gone for some time. And I don't
Mm.
know that there's not a parent there with the kids.
Right.
Or, mom was on the phone, or mom made or sometimes they'll say mom cleaned up this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we'll get that. But the kids do have a perception that mom is me. And we've had these conversations as a family.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That mom is mean? Is that what you said?
yes, that mom is me. There's a consensus that she is.
Any
And
example? Oh, sorry. Please read.
it wasn't just targeting her. We were asking about mom and dad, like, how can we do things better? Generally, me leading these conversations. And it was mama's mean. And she said, no, I'm not mean. I am strict. That's not strict.
Well, if we could just discuss a little bit of some of the types of communication that Laura has with the children.
Sure.
Okay.
The biggest issue is not necessarily what the communication is how the communication happens and the tone of the communication.
Gotcha.
So a lot of yelling, a lot of scolding. And when she's feeling good, she'll act like a friend to the kids, which I think is inappropriate. And it's I think it's messing up the kids' mental. When you're calling your daughters sis and saying these cool cultural terms they should not be hearing. You should be saying these things. You should be saying motherly things to your kids. Long story
Absolutely.
short. Okay, when she's scolding the kids, there's usually profanity being used. She'll say things like, hey, you better get your ass over here, which unfortunately is common in the Black community now.
It is.
She'll say things like, I'll beat the shit out of you, and I don't give a fuck about any of this stuff, or you doing what the fuck you want to do, and your ass is blah blah blah. This very 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 aggressive things that you will hear when there's a conflict between two adults who don't like each other.
Right. Well, but if I can stop you, that's actually not common, and we're going to get to that later, because a lot of this has started, seems like possibly has become common, but in a normal household, that's actually not very common. You know what I mean? Between, husband and wife, and especially to be saying that to children, either way, it's not, for a lot of households, it's actually not common,
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's there was one time where she literally told the children, she told them, fuck you.
Whoa. Sorry.
To the children.
Sorry. Okay.
And this was communication from the children. I wasn't there when it happened, but they told me that.
Gotcha.
So
gotcha. Is there anything what we haven't talked about? We've talked about several things: physical abuse, gaslighting, you know what I mean? The profanity. Is there any drug use involved in any of this? Because what I hear you say is that she's leaving the household for hours at a time. No one knows where she is. Is that something that you've noticed?
Yes, there is a lot of marijuana usage.
Okay. Now, how do you know about this?
Well, I can smell it.
Yeah.
I've seen remnants laying around.
Okay.
I've seen her do it several times, but
Okay.
on average, I will say it's a use. On average, I'll say maybe 5 to 6 times out of the week that I know of for sure.
Whoa, that's
And
okay.
she will use like all her money to get it. So
now, all of her money, is there like a certain amount of money that we don't want to get too, personal with your finances, of course, but is there a certain amount of money that you're giving to her that she's using for this?
well, she gets child support from the oldest child's father and lies about not getting it. So she'll use that, and she will even make her account go negative. Her personal account go negative because there's I guess an overdraft protection thing up to like $200 or $300.
Right.
And in her head, I'm assuming that it's okay, I'll just replace it then. But then go take money out of the master account. I believe, I'm only speculating.
Right.
But there's no reason for her not to have money because this child support money that's coming in does not go towards the household.
Gotcha. It's strictly for her and the child.
No, not for the child.
Oh.
Child doesn't get anything.
Oh, so she uses that as her own like pocket money.
Yes, that's been a talking point where my kid has vented to me about that, about why she's not getting any of that child support money.
No, this is your stepdaughter, right?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Now, let me ask you, how do you feel all of these different chaos and things going in the household? How do you feel that this affects the children?
I think it affects them in a very, very negative way. I mean, there's no thinking about it.
Right.
Because this is going to mold them into the adults in the future that they are. And it saddens me because my daughters are going to grow up not knowing how to be a wife. And my sons are going to grow up seeing these things and have low expectations of women.
Wow.
So, but on the same token, she will tell me how horrible I am as a husband and as a father, and will go tell the kids certain things. Look at how your dad's acting. Look at, this is not how it's supposed to be. I'm so sad that they have to grow up and see how you are.
Whoa. Okay. Pause there. These are things that your wife is telling to the children?
Me and the children. Yeah. There was a comparison one time where my kids came back and told me this. And she said that, would you rather have a husband like your dad, or would you rather have a husband like your Uncle Chris?
Wow.
Uncle Chris has a wife that walks all over him, and he doesn't say anything. He kind of just lets her be.
And about how old were the kids when she asked them this question?
I don't know. I'd say maybe 10.
Wow.
Maybe 10 and 8.
She asked a 10 and 8 year old.
The kid's response, my daughter's response was, I told her I'd rather have a husband like Uncle Chris, but because I didn't want her to get mad and yell at me when I really want a husband just like you, Dad.
And this is what your child told you?
That's what she told me.
Wow. That is that's pretty deep.
So
that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Now, if you can, before we go on, just for some of the ones that were listening, now, as you know, we've known each other for some years now, right? And I remember for the longest time, you kind of didn't feel like you were in an abusive marriage. And I've noticed that just recently that you've started to kind of, come to this realization. What kind of changed your mind about that?
When I started going to therapy and actually talking to you too as well, you've helped me a lot through this journey. When I realized that I was being gaslit a lot, because early on in relationships when these things were going on, I kind of felt like I had too much hand in the fire of arguments, and I've caused a lot of this. So there was a lot of apologizing on my half, even when I did nothing wrong. But it felt like I did something wrong because someone's telling that you did something wrong.
It's almost like a confusion, right? It's like you're just confused. It's like almost like you don't know what reality is,
Yeah. Until I realized that, okay, Justin, you're being manipulated.
Right.
Big time. And yeah. So one of the things that helped me big time and is helping me is listening to like other people.
Gotcha.
About situations. And I kind of spoke on like narcissistic personality disorder. Yes. I am not saying that she has that, but the things that I witness day to day lines up perfectly. So I am learning to respond to those things accordingly and have to act as if she has this disorder or something like it to protect myself, which means I have to appear as boring as possible. I have to engage as little as possible. Still be there to support and secure the household and whatnot, but it's a very, very tough situation. It's almost like I'm in a game, like I have to play the game to win.
And I know we've discussed this before, and I think you just said that you have to appear as boring as possible. And so I guess what I'm hearing with that is kind of making sure you don't like fuel the fire or feed the beast. I think they call that, so that so that she doesn't, overreact by something that you said that she's taken emotionally. So you have to kind of like essentially not feed that part of her.
Well, it will still happen. It will still happen regardless if I do that or not. Okay. There's a whole lot of like I guess you can say poke the bear.
Yes, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like, I'll get a text message of like I'll clean the kitchen a night before, and I forgot to use two pots that I made a cake with the kids the night before, but I washed everything else to clean it. So I get a text message while I'm at work with a picture of the pans. Please clean up after yourself after you're done using dishes. Thanks.
And you just leave it there. No response or anything.
Honestly, I don't remember if I responded or not. This was a while ago.
Right.
Yeah, the fact that it happened.
Now, let me ask you another quick question, because we're going to have to start to wind down here. Why do you believe that you didn't recognize it for so long? Because you came from, a relatively stable household, and then now here you are, and what for me sounds like a very, chaotic lifestyle where there's yelling and cursing and all these things. How is it that you didn't recognize it as it was happening?
Because when we dated in high school, these things were not apparent.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I didn't really see these things. But when we got older, when we started dating again and those things slowly crept up, in my head, it's just like, okay, this is just a phase and things are going to get better. This is not really her. And I still had in my head, the innocent relationship that we had when we were younger. So it comes down to denial.
Right. And maybe possibly just some hope, what I mean, that she will change. Just hoping that, one day she's going to change. There's another thing I wanted to discuss that we didn't really talk about too much, and is the oldest child. This is your stepchild, correct?
This is my stepchild.
And I know that you never refer to her as a stepchild. You refer to her as your daughter, your child, correct?
Yes.
At this point, I would like for you to talk to some of the young men that are watching this now, and I want you to talk to them, and if you could, give them your feelings on becoming a step parent and how you're able to handle it, and your decision to choose, a woman that already had a child. I just wanted you just to give them some information about that. Young men that have not, married yet or had any children yet.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to keep this very simple. Don't do it.
No, okay.
Don't do it.
That's simple. Mm-hmm.
If in an ideal world, you'll meet a woman who does not have children, who does not have baggage, and you'll court her accordingly.
Right.
Because what I've come to realize is if you court a woman who has children already, there will always be at least a little piece of her that will never respect you. She will never respect you.
And is that what you feel from your wife?
You are caring for another man's child in that case.
Right.
And it's not something in her head as to where, oh, I don't respect him because of this. It's more of like a subconscious thing.
Mm. And is that what you feel from your wife?
Yes, very much so. Very, very much so.
Now, is the oldest daughter, your stepdaughter, is her father involved? Is he in the picture at all?
Not well, very, very sparingly. He'll pop up here and there.
Okay.
And, I heard all these stories from my wife about how things got abusive and how he was abusive there and then. Mm-hmm. And I heard them when we started dating, but it never occurred to me, like, what did you do?
Right. You know what's funny? I never considered that either until I started listening to Kevin Samuels. We automatically believe a woman. We hear almost any woman you talk to, if you ask her what happened to the last relationship, it was abusive, it was toxic, and automatically we assume and we expect that it was the man. It's like none of us really thought. It's like some sort of conditioning has been placed on us in society where we never fathom that maybe the toxicity, maybe the abuse, maybe all of these things, if not came directly from the woman, but was initiated by the woman. Because when you think about these toxic, abusive relationships, it's like it makes you think, were men just walking up to these women and just abusing them? Like, what was going on? What was the scenario? And I think that times are finally starting to change, where we are starting to look at the man's side and the man's story. And are all these men just out here abusing and being toxic to all these women? When you really look at around, now we've got social media. So now we're starting to really kind of peek and see inside people's lives. And we're seeing in a lot of these cases, it's indeed the woman that is initiating these toxic battles.
So I don't know if you have any female viewers or not. Can I speak to your female viewers?
Yes, I have mostly males, but I do have a small percentage and we're hoping to grow that. But yes, please do.
Yes. If there's any advice I can give you, stop enabling bad behavior, because that is one of the biggest issues with women, specifically Black women nowadays. You enable each other. And you hear things from them and you think that it's okay to do. It is not. All men aren't dogs. All women aren't great. All women aren't bad. All men aren't good. So you need to deal with your friends and your associates accordingly, just to maintain this certain facade of we're friends and I don't want to ruin a friendship. So I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something to you about something that you did, which was toxic behavior, and make you feel like you did the right thing. You're damaging your relationship with that person. You're damaging that person's relationship with others. That's been an ongoing thing in the Black community for a very long time. And Black women do not have accountability for each other. They refuse to give it. So when you hear men talking about these things, it feels like you're being attacked. That's why things are the way they are now, in my opinion.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. I agree with you 100%. And I say all the time, that's number one, why I don't have a whole lot of female subscribers, because this is a very truth-telling channel. And also, I don't have very many female friends, because the reality of it is, I'm going to be straight up, it's almost impossible to tell a woman the truth. I can't maintain a friendship because I'm not going to lie to you. And we see that on all aspects of life. I mean, a woman can be completely morbidly obese and her friends will tell her that she's a bad bee and like she looks so good and all these things. And the first thing a woman does, when she has problems in her household, she wants to run to her family, run to her friends, and dog her husband out. Throw her husband under the bus to complete strangers. What a lot of women don't understand, especially wives, a lot of times they'll have single friends because, Black women, we're the least married. So a lot of our friends are going to be single. Now, mind you, this single woman doesn't have that married woman's best interest in mind. So she comes, oh, my husband did this and that girlfriend, oh, no, girl, you can't let him do that to you. You can do bad by yourself, girl, don't do that, and pumps her up. And it's like a little echo chamber that, these women are creating where they're all giving their sob stories. They're all patting each other on the back, accepting essentially lies and not want to tell each other the truth. Because if you tell the woman the truth, oh, trust me, you're out.
Yeah.
I've been there and done that. Yeah.
And even when there is an apparent problem, they won't be straightforward and say that, hey, you got an issue you need resolved.
Oh, you can't.
It'll be things like, oh, she was going through something. Oh, she was depressed. This is why she did this. Instead of, no, she's just a piece of shit. Or her personality is not that great.
Absolutely.
Tell her the truth. It will help. Right. It will help. One of the major issues personal issues that I had in my life is I had a gambling issue at a point in my life. It never spent out of control where I put my family in danger. But one of the things that helped me is several of my very, very good friends that I talked to held me accountable. And they told me, I had friends that basically told me, like, Justin, you're messing up. You need to stop this gambling thing. And because X, Y, and Z could happen in the future. If my friends did not do that, and I was only trying to hold myself accountable and didn't have that extra help, which I was not holding myself accountable at all, because gambling just became a thing. I probably would still be doing it. But to enable me, my friends could have been like, oh, man, yeah, that's cool. You want a lot of money? Hey, let's go. I want to go with you. Hey, you want to do this? No, they told me, Justin, you need to stop. The issue is a lot of women can't do that.
Right.
They cannot do that, and they refuse to do that. Right. So they'll enable their friends for this bad behavior.
Right. And I think part of that is sometimes misery loves company. So a lot of these women are miserable. And to be honest with you, they want their quote unquote friends to be miserable and single and whatever other issues right along with them. And I think that part of that goes into what I've spoken about on other videos of the deception of a woman and the lies that we tell. We tell not only lies to ourselves, but we lie to our friends. We lie to our families. Part of that is in a woman's nature to be deceptive. We're starting to really get into some heavy time here. So we're going to start to wind this down. Are there any more words that you would like to say to the audience, Justin, before we let you go?
I guess just to reiterate to the young men that make sure you know who you decide to date and who you decide to put a ring on their finger. Hate to beat down the dead horse, right? But if she has a child, abort. It will not always go bad, but most of the time you can count on there being some issues. Don't do it.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were saying abort, like leave the situation. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I got you. Okay. And I'll just add on to that real quick before we go. And this is something that I say to men all the time. And I think you touched on it as well. Sometimes we like to enable these women and just allow their bad behavior to flourish unchecked. And so I think that's something all of society can do, especially when it comes to Black women. We've just allowed them to be out of control for decades now. And we started hearing about this back in the 90s with Sister Scheherazade Ali and her book that she wrote, The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman. For so long, Black women, especially women in general, but Black women especially, have gone on unexamined for a long time. And I tell Black men, when you're dealing with a woman at any stage of your relationship, you really have to learn to start to put your foot down. So many people want to tiptoe around these women and don't want to get them upset. And like you said, don't want to poke the bear, don't want to cause problems and things like that. But it's allowed these women to go grow completely out of control. But I'm really starting to see now, like, that narrative is starting to, thank goodness, turn around. You know what I mean? Men are starting to stand up for themselves and are not taking this abuse and all this trauma and toxicity from the woman. And I'm really glad to see that happen. I'm glad that, we are doing this platform here. We're allowing men to come out and speak about the situations that are going on in their homes. I want to thank you, especially Justin, not only for coming up here and sharing, personal things about your life and your household, but for helping and talking to these young men and for giving me this idea to do this. So again, I just want to thank you so much for being here, and thank you. And I think that's going to be it.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to say one more thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Young men, check and see if the father was there in her life. If he wasn't, you can almost bet your money on there could be some issues too.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. And while Justin is checking out here, thank you guys again. This is a brand new project, so I'm still learning my way. I know our videos can be a bit long, but it takes a lot to really get into these stories and to hear what these men have to say. I want to thank you all for being here. We have our next History Talks. Hopefully, my next one should be this Wednesday. That's what I'm hoping for. This one coming up Wednesday is going to be a rough one. And so really, hold on to your hats. I hate to, have to bring you guys these, difficult stories like this, but it's important that the truth really gets out there about what's really, going on in the Black community. And like I said, this is not just for Black people. This is for, things like this are going on in all races. However, like many other things, the Black community a lot of times is affected the worst. I did another video a while back. It's probably going to be at the ending here. Hopefully I'll put it here about why this happened to us. Actually, let me find it so that you guys can know which one to go to. So let me pause this. Okay, here it is. That video is entitled, so on my channel, Who is at Fault for the Demise of the Black Community? And so I might even link that in the comments section, because that is a very important video, because it explains why all these things are exponentially worse in the Black community, although they absolutely still do happen in other communities as well. So that's going to be the end of this video. So please like this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel. This is Red Femme Diaries. Goodbye.